I came home one night to find our house egged, my tires flat, and rats spray painted on our garage. I thought it was random until I realized it was right after I reported their unpermitted pool build. I stayed quiet, but when I got the building inspector involved, he told me something that turned everything around. We bought the house in Anaheim thinking we'd finally get some peace. After years of apartment living, noisy neighbors, and parking headaches, this quiet corner lot felt like a fresh start. Our block was made up of older folks, young families, and a few houses that looked like rentals. But everyone kept their lawns neat, and the evenings were quiet. It felt safe. The first year was everything we hoped. I'd mow the lawn Saturday mornings, my wife would water the flowers, and we'd sit out back with our dog and a couple beers as the sun went down. No drama. That changed the moment the Martins moved in. They bought the place 2 doors down. Bright blue house, sagging chain-link fence. They showed up with 3 trucks and about 6 people. Not a hi, not a smile, nothing. The dad, Gary, I'd later find out, just stood with his arms crossed while the movers hauled in stuff. Right away, something felt off. Not dangerous, just edgy. That summer, they threw a party almost every weekend. Loud music, kids running around, cars parked half on the sidewalk. One night a beer can ended up in my yard. I threw it away and didn't say anything. I was trying to be a decent neighbor. Then in early spring, I noticed a crew in their backyard. Big guys hauling in tools and lumber. I asked Gary one morning while we both grabbed the paper, "Hey, what are you guys building back there?" He barely looked at me. "Just fixing up the yard." I knew that was BS. A week later, the noise picked up, saws, trucks, a cement mixer. I climbed up on a step stool in my backyard just high enough to peek over. They were building a pool. Not an above-ground one. A full concrete in-ground setup. It was already halfway done. No fencing around it. No permit signs. No inspector visits. I checked the city's online permit portal. Nothing. I waited a few days. Still nothing. So, I filed a report with the city's building department. I didn't put my name down. I honestly didn't want trouble. I just didn't want some kid drowning back there because they skipped safety rules. 3 nights later, I came home around 9:30 p.m. My wife was out of town visiting her sister. I pulled into the driveway and something immediately fell off. The garage door had something on it. I parked, got out, and walked closer. Rat was spray painted across the garage in sloppy red letters. Huge. Still dripping. I just stood there for a second. Then I noticed the eggs. Smashed on the front windows, dripping down. And when I walked around to the side of the car, both tires on the driver's side were flat. That wasn't random. That wasn't kids. That was someone sending a message. I cleaned up what I could, took photos, and called the non-emergency police line. An officer came out about an hour later. Young guy. He took it seriously but told me straight up, without cameras or witnesses, there wasn't much they could do. I filed the report anyway. I didn't have proof, but I knew who it was. The timing was too perfect. The next morning, I was out front trying to get the paint off the garage door when their teenage son walked by. No school that day, I guess. He didn't say anything. Just gave me this smirk, like he knew something I didn't. That smug teenage. What are you going to do about it, look? That was when I got angry. I didn't confront them. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction. Instead, I called the city again. This time, I gave them my name. Told them about the illegal pool build, the possible retaliation, and the vandalism. The guy on the phone was quiet for a second. Then he asked, "Are you on Grovewood Avenue? 2 houses down from the blue house with the chain link?" I said yes. Then he said, "Yeah, I've been out there before. That address was flagged last year for a garage conversion. Same owners. No permits." Ignored the stop work order. Ended up with a fine they never paid. They tried to lie about who was living there. It was a whole thing. I didn't know that. I thought this was a one-off. Turns out they were repeat offenders. They knew how to game the system. They knew exactly how far they could go without real consequences. Now I wanted to know more. I started digging. Public records. City reports. Old neighborhood posts.
What I found made me sick.
There were 2 older code violations tied to that property. One from 2 years ago. An illegal detached structure they tried to call a tool shed, even though it had windows, insulation, and plumbing. Another one from before that, for multiple families living in a single-family home. Neighbors had complained about noise and trash. They lied to inspectors every time, paid small fines when they had to, then just kept doing whatever they wanted. It was a pattern, and they were good at it. They knew how slow the system moved, how overworked the inspectors were. They'd push until someone reported them, then stall, lie, promise to fix it, and start all over again with something new. This time, I wasn't going to let it go. I went down to the city offices in person, met with the inspector, Jeff, older guy, tough voice, no patience for BS. I showed him photos of the spray paint, told him about the tire slashing. He shook his head and said, "That's the 3rd complaint I've had about them in 6 months. You're just the first one who came in." He pulled up their file. Thick folder. Dozens of notes. The illegal pool was just the latest mess. Then he said something that stopped me. "They filed a complaint against you, you know." I blinked. "What?" He turned the screen toward me. "Anonymous complaint. Says your property line fence is too high, blocks sight lines. Says you've been playing loud music at night. Unpermitted shed, too." I laughed. It wasn't funny, but I couldn't help it. That was their move. Retaliation. He looked at me and said, "They're trying to bury you in noise so you'll back off."
Don't.
That flipped a switch in me. It wasn't just about a pool anymore. These people were weaponizing the city system, harassing neighbors. And they thought I'd just sit quietly while they ruined the block. I spent the next week building a file. Photos.
Dates.
Screenshots. Every truck that came and went. The exact time they poured concrete. The sound recordings from my back window. Even the fireworks they set off late at night. I even found another neighbor, Mrs. Huang, retired schoolteacher, who told me they threatened her dog after she asked them to turn the music down. I put it all in a folder and sent it straight to Jeff and the city attorney's office. Then I waited. 3 weeks went by. The city finally acted. They sent a formal stop work order. Posted it right on the Martins' front door. Bright orange. Couldn't miss it. I watched from my window as Gary ripped it down, crumpled it, and threw it in the trash like it was junk mail. But then something strange happened. The work kept going. They waited until after 6 p.m., after inspectors were off the clock, and kept building. I saw the same crew come back under a different truck name. Same guys, same tools. Just new shirts. It wasn't just bold. It was illegal. I called Jeff and told him. He sighed like he'd heard it all before. "I'll send someone again," he said, but he didn't sound hopeful. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I started recording them myself. I bought a cheap security camera, mounted it behind the bushes facing their yard. I caught everything. The trucks, the late-night sawing, even a guy mixing cement at midnight. Then, out of nowhere, I got a letter in the mail. Certified. From a lawyer. It said I was being accused of harassment, invasion of privacy, stalking, false reporting. The letter demanded I stop interfering with the Martins' right to peaceful enjoyment of their home. It ended by threatening to explore civil action if this pattern continues. I sat there holding that letter, hands shaking. They were flipping the script, making me the villain. My wife wanted to let it go. "It's not worth it," she said. "They're not going to stop, and now they've got lawyers." But I couldn't let it go. Not after the threats. Not after the vandalism. Not after watching them openly break the law in plain sight while the city shuffled paper. Then something shifted. Jeff called me one afternoon. "We just got approval to escalate," he said. "The city's legal team is opening a case. We're filing for enforcement." He sounded different. Serious. "They've done this in 3 cities," he added. "Not just here. They bounce around. Buy cheap homes, do illegal builds, rent to multiple families under the table. It's a whole thing." I asked how he found out. "Someone in code enforcement used to work in Santa Clarita."
Same family.
Same pattern. This time, they pissed off the wrong person. I wasn't sure if he meant me or someone else. Either way, it felt like the tide was turning. 2 days later, I came home to find a rock thrown through our front window. Not a crack. A full shatter. Glass everywhere, couch covered in shards. My wife was home when it happened. She was in the kitchen, heard the crash, thought someone was breaking in. The cops came fast this time. They treated it like a real threat. Took fingerprints. Asked if we had cameras. I gave them everything. That night, my wife looked at me and said, "We need to move. This isn't worth it." I told her I understood. But in my gut, I knew that's exactly what the Martins wanted. To wear us down. To make life so difficult that we'd just walk away. And maybe that worked on other people. But not me. Then Jeff called again. "We're raiding the property," he said. "Tomorrow morning. Building inspector, fire marshal, and code enforcement. LAPD will be there, too." I asked why fire marshal. He paused. "They tapped into the gas line illegally." I didn't even know what to say. Apparently, during the pool work, they tried to install an outdoor kitchen gas stove, built-in grill, the whole thing. But instead of hiring someone certified, they had one of their crews splice into the main gas line without a permit. No inspection. No leak test. It was a miracle the house hadn't exploded. The next morning, I didn't go to work. I sat in my front room with a cup of coffee and waited. Around 8:15 a.m., 4 trucks pulled up. Unmarked vans. Then a marked LAPD cruiser. Then 2 inspectors in uniform. It was like watching a crime scene unfold in slow motion. They knocked. No answer. Eventually, they entered the backyard through the side gate. Gary came out yelling. His wife started filming with her phone. The teenage son stood on the porch just watching, like he'd seen it all before. What happened next was almost surreal. The fire marshal shut off the gas line entirely. Said it was a hazard. The building inspector posted a red tag on the front door. Unsafe structure. The pool is deemed unfit, and the worksite was locked down. They had to vacate the house within 48 hours. But that wasn't the twist. The twist came when the LAPD officer walked over to one of the trucks and popped the trunk. Inside were dozens of unlicensed electrical parts. Switches, cords, tools, stuff used for underground contracting. The guy they'd been using? He wasn't just unlicensed, he had a suspended contractor's license due to fraud. He was arrested on the spot. That's when Gary lost it. Started shouting, waving his arms, cursing everyone. The cops had to calm him down. His wife was screaming about property rights and harassment, but no one was listening anymore. Because then Jeff walked over, held up a document, and said, loud enough for me to hear, "This is your cease and desist order. Effective immediately. Any attempt to re-enter or do further work without approval will result in criminal charges." Gary didn't say a word after that. They left about a month later. Quietly. No hubo, no explanation. Just a for sale sign and an empty house with busted up grass where the pool used to be. People still ask if it was worth it going through all that pushing back. And I don't really have an answer. All I know is I used to think being a good neighbor meant staying out of other people's business. Now I wonder how many people thought the same thing right before everything around them got worse.